Hi, this is Dal Pereira from the IBM Developer Works team, reporting back from the AT&T Developer Summit, which just concluded yesterday. Quite an event, around 2,500 mobile developers in the house. And what we're really seeing is the move away from having your single device doing one thing and living on it. On one hand, you could be connected to a cloud environment, data could be pushed up, could be pushed down, could be connected to the workplace, so that whilst you're waiting in line at the post office, you could actually just catch up and get that very important email back to your boss. And could be connected to the number of API services that are out there. A little bit more on that later. So I wanted to share with you some of the key takeaways that I felt personally when I saw at this event. First up, M2M, machine to machine. The idea that devices can utilize these networks to communicate with each other. So for instance, AT&T partners heavily with IBM business partner Exida in offering an M2M platform on which developers can build applications that really make use of anything that has a sensor, that has some kind of detection, hook that up to the Exida network, and then allow developers to really take advantage of all that data and be able to interact with that device. Some examples there, think about what you could do in terms of monitoring the vitals of your home while you happen to be away on business, for instance. Another interesting one, we had the winner of the hackathon managed to take apart these weird kind of ears that were brain powered and happened to just rotate and move as you based on your brain waves. Took those apart, connected it to a little Arduino device and managed to hook that up to the AT&T network in such a way, if you happen to be agitated, either a call wouldn't come into you, brainwave detection would tell the system to hang on, just hold back on the call, somewhat tied up at the moment. I think this is more interesting. The other way around, if you happen to be agitated and it monitors and it picks up heavy brainwave activity, then the phone would just give you, and you go to make a phone call, the phone would give you this little bit of advice, let's say, or a little kind of paternal knock on the shoulder saying, are you sure you really want to make this call now? You seem to be a little bit agitated right now. Could save a lot of angry phone calls, maybe even save some jobs. Another key takeaway is that some of the key industries that are really being touched by mobile right now, automotive appears to be one. Our cars are getting smarter. They're having the ability to go beyond being just playing Pandora radio stations. They can schedule our calls. They can automatically notify people, say if we're stuck in traffic, by the push of a button, it could send both the location, if it knows that from GPS from your phone, and it could send that on to somebody that you may have pre-programmed earlier who was going to be the next person that you visit. Alternatively, going further than that, say for instance in the healthcare space, on the one hand for patients, the ability to monitor your own health, to measure that, what you're doing with your lifestyle, looking at tools such as Fitbit and incorporating that kind of data into systems where you can see, well, as you work out, where you train, if things get, where your actual health signals may actually fluctuate. If you have diabetes, you may see instances where your sugar levels go up, and you can trace that back to actually what's happening in your with your own lifestyle. And therefore, the patients ourselves, we can actually improve our own health. On the other side of that, if you do start looking at the enterprise and looking at the mobile enterprise where you happen to have practitioners, doctors, etc., seeing a lot more in this M2M space in terms of having also their devices be more connected, so that information, say from life support systems, etc., that can be shared and passed around, and also much heavier use of The idea that also the practitioners, doctors, can make use of devices in many different ways, from taking pictures of patients to being able to use a device to monitor patients in different ways and collaborate, crowdsource ideas, and make sure that they use the best knowledge possible to make their decisions about our health. Finally, finance. Here we had an interesting discussion with one of our partners, Keynote Device Anywhere, who offer mobile testing, particularly important in environments where you have a number of different devices, especially these days with Android, where even if you've developed an application, you've used an emulator, you've got an idea what it looks like, you really want to know what it looks like out in the wild. And one way that you can do that is to use their testing environment where they have a number of different devices hooked up to a server which any developer can access. Could see this really creeping into the enterprise space as we see the BYOD movement coming in, where we have your bring your own device. It's gone are the days where a company could dictate, okay, we're going to be a BlackBerry shop or we're an iPhone shop. It's getting to the point where enterprises have to take into account all the different devices that their employees could be using. So if you're offering enterprise-grade devices, then you really need a way in which you can make sure that all those users have the kind of experience that they should be having, and that you don't have to spend a lot of time debugging or dealing with instances where maybe a big set of who is your potential marketplace ends up being disenfranchised because perhaps they have just low usability or they can't access your applications through their specific device. On that front, also another key takeaway was the growth of mobile enterprise development. I know we've been seeing this a lot, especially in the enterprise space. You go to any enterprise level conferences these days and you see a lot of mobile solutions, mobile architecture being offered. But what we heard from the AT&T folks when we got to sit down with some of their developer programs guys like Kevin Griffin and Ed Schmidt, they said that they're seeing across in their own programs a heightened interest in developing for the enterprise and really trying to understand what does the enterprise need to get into this mobile connected space. Another key point to touch on, security. As we're saying, if these devices are no longer just a one-off piece, if it's interacting with a cloud service, if the device is sharing information from various, maybe it's getting information from perhaps from a sensor that I'm passing about my health conditions, then really need to make sure we've got secure systems. And that security then plays a key role. And this is data security where the data is both in motion, so as the data is being transferred across the device or across a network, to make sure that that data is being handled securely, but also then in terms of that data collection and holding of that data. If we are giving, I'll use again the example of healthcare, if you're making sure that you have the best possible approach to being able to say, let's say if I am sharing a lot of my information about my lifestyles, about my health records, then I really want to be sure that that's being stored in a secure location. Security, definitely a big one. Finally, I'd like to touch on call management and the idea where a system can sit between us as we make calls and can do some intelligent things with us. On the one hand, it could be, you see a lot in the speech-to-text area, for instance. It could be that you're at a meeting, happen to be sitting there, somebody else, your colleague, or perhaps even somebody like your wife, trying to get a message through. They're sitting in the car, they're not going to be able to meet you for lunch or for dinner, or maybe something more serious, they're trying to make a call. Now you've got your phone set to do not disturb, don't take, I'm not in a position, I'm sitting around with my peers, really not in a position here to be able to take a call, but that could come through as an SMS message, for instance, speech to text, takes the call, converts it to a message. That message, then I receive that message sitting in my meeting. I maybe have to look down a little bit. I do get slightly taken away from my meeting, but on the whole, I could take a look at that. I could then respond by text, and perhaps then there's a system in between which takes that and it delivers it back to my wife, who can't accept text because she's driving. So she receives that same message delivered as voice. and those kind of systems, seeing many applications there. Call centers, as you're on the phone to an individual, classic problem with call centers is the idea that you don't quite know if the person you're speaking to really has all the knowledge that they could have about your particular problem. It could be that there's a call intercept that still keeps that person on the phone, but maybe their system, by reading your voice and by understanding the conversation, can start providing information to them, pulling across their internal systems and their knowledge management bases to be able to help them provide you a better solution. So, quite a lot there to digest. But I think, again, as I said at the top of this, at the core is the idea that we're getting way beyond just having single device or single smartphone, but really looking at what happens when that starts connecting, the myriad services available, and how we manage those. So interesting, much more information out there on the AT&T Developer Summit, and I look forward to getting back to you soon.